Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast. This is Wacky Wednesday. I'm Adam Best, here as always with Sterling Holmes and Richard doing his thing behind the scenes. How does it feel to be Super Bowl champions, everybody?
Na na na
Nah, nah,
na.
nah.
Feels great, man. I mean, anytime you have a parade on a Wednesday in February, the weather, it is what it is. It's now freezing for February. It's great, man. I am doing outstanding. How are you?
Fighting through a cold, but as happy as can be. I'm walking on sunshine. I do want to know with the make them say, so first you have Andy Reid name drop Master P. And then you have Travis Kelce do this. What's up with the callback to 1999? You know what I mean?
It was awesome, dude. I don't even know. I mean, I don't know if they were or not. Mahomes looked like he had a few adult beverages in him when he gave his speech when he got on stage. The goggles sideways, the WWE championship belt that he's rocking, the beer in hand, and then Travis Kelce going all in. I love Chris Jones taking the mic from Mitch Holthus. And in that situation, I don't blame Mitch Holthus one bit. He's trying to say, I have a script. Let me stick to it. Let me hold on to the mic. It's time to end this thing. And Chris Jones is trying to get it. He basically wrestles the mic away from Mitch Holthus. It was great.
I love how Chris Jones is even the closer at the Super Bowl parade party. He just had to come in and finish things, you know?
Oh, it was perfect, man. It's so much fun.
I don't know if I love Run It Back being back again. Couldn't we have picked something new that didn't already fail? I'm just saying. I'm very superstitious about my Chiefs stuff. So
3 and 5. How about that one? 3 and 5. Does that work?
3 and 5. Oh, you mean I gotcha.
No, it's so fun, man. Where we are at now is we're witnessing the prime years of Kansas City as Patrick Mahomes enters his prime. You heard Brett Veach, you heard Mahomes. If this is a retooling year, a reloading year, sign us up, especially as it ends in a Super Bowl. But I want to give a shout out to our sponsor before we go any farther, Casey Beer Company. They are the best sponsor in the world, best beer in the world. Thanks to you guys, you really made this partnership grow. It allowed us to partner with them and have our own beer, Arrowhead Lager. And again, thanks to you guys as well. We sold out not once, but twice. Seriously, the support that you guys have for us and for them is huge. They're a local company. You know, we're obviously a Kansas City based. We love the Kansas City Chiefs. You guys supporting us and supporting them means the world to us. We're not this huge conglomerate. That's not what we're about. It means the world. So thank you for your support. But Casey Beer Co., if you've tried it, you know it is phenomenal. Dare to beer different.
So this week, instead of hitting you with the same angle about the game over and over and over, we're going to do something different. So no awards, no hot take kingdom. What we're going to do instead is a new segment called the top 10 Chiefs performers from the Super Bowl. What do you think about that, Sterling?
I love it.
Ready to rattle these off?
Let's do it.
See what the chat thinks.
Let's do it.
Number 10, Brett Veach's rookie class. I think it was 9 rookies. Does that count seem right to you?
I think they said 10.
I thought they said 10 too, but I counted and I was like, well, who's the 10th? Because we have the 4 guys in the secondary.
Yeah.
Karlaftis, Sky Moore, and Pacheco. Then we have Najee Johnson. Who am I forgetting?
I'm going to say it's Najee Johnson. They do
Leo Chanel. Leo Chanel. And that's as far as I can get is 9. I can't come up with the 10th one. So I think maybe he misspoke.
You know what? Doesn't matter.
I mean, there's so many rookies we can't even count them, you know. And they scored 2 touchdowns and recorded a sack. And in the AFC Championship, they came up huge with those interceptions. So one of these top performers had to be not just the rookie class, but the man who brought them to Kansas City, Brett Veach.
I mean, seriously, Brett Veach and Howie Roseman, this entire offseason, they did it two different ways. Howie Roseman, some through the draft, yes, but Howie Roseman did it through bringing guys in, through signing guys, through trades, while Brett Veach did it a different way. It was trades, but it was trading away Tyreek Hill, right? That's what this offseason was about. It was about the retooling. It was about not just winning this year, but winning for the future. Brett Veach deserves a ton of credit. I like how calm and collected he is. When you saw him take the mic, it's not in his nature to be Travis Kelce. That's not his nature. His nature is to be very calculated. And that's what this entire offseason was. It was a calculated move to get better now and for the future. We saw the speed. We saw the game plan come together, and we saw the rookies make an impact. We heard about the rumors that they could have traded Tyreek Hill for the 10th overall draft pick, but the thought process behind it was, all right, we get one guy at 10, but then what happens? Let's get a guy at 21, get a guy later on, get multiple chances to get some impact players because there's other holes we need to fix. Well, guess what? His philosophy paid off, and it paid off in huge dividends. Brett Veach, here is to you.
It did, and he didn't want to be the Vikings who traded Randy Moss for a bust. I can't even remember who the receiver they picked. I can't remember his name. That's how big of a bust he was. I just lost it. But the great thing about this rookie class is I think there was sort of agreement across the NFL mediascape that this trade would ultimately pay dividends down the road, 2-3 years from now. But it immediately paying dividends. The consensus was, hey, they're going to take a step back because of this Tyreek trade for a year or two. And they got better. There's just no way to say they didn't get better because they won the Super Bowl. Last year, they didn't even make the Super Bowl. So
shout out to Lucas. Darian Kennard didn't play, but Jack Cochran, undrafted free agent, did play on special teams. Shout out to Lucas.
Heads up play there, Lucas.
Yeah.
Speaking of special teams, number 9 is special team aces Jody Fortson and especially Marcus Kemp for the work they did on the longest punt return in Super Bowl history from Kadarius Toney. Just both unsung heroes. Kemp, I think he essentially took out half the team because he hit, God, what's the guy's name? Edwards. And Edwards kind of took out Darius Harris. And then like 3 other guys fell. It was like bowling, right? And then he hits another guy and throws himself into the third guy. And Jody Fortson's just cleaning some guy's clock at the very end. Just a really impressive. It reminded me of those Dante Hall special teams with Mark Bo Richter and all those guys. Even kind of what Kadarius did, it was human joystick like, right?
That return was incredible. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like they said on the broadcast that was the longest punt return in Super Bowl history.
That's right. 65 yards.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Great
it's
job.
It's hard to believe.
It's not just Kadarius Toney. You have to have guys blocking up front and special team aces. You're right to mention them, Jody Fortson and Marcus Kemp. First off, these two dudes have fought very hard to find a spot on the roster. They've gone through major injuries multiple times in their career. Jody Fortson, we know he was struggling to go from practice squad to the active roster. He got hurt multiple times. But finding a way to make an impact in the Super Bowl has to feel so good for him. And then Marcus Kemp, special teams in every sense of the word, and then gets called up in the AFC Championship game, comes up with a massive catch. But then in the Super Bowl, you're right. Marcus Kemp was going back and forth from practice squad to this active roster. Who knows if he's on it, if Chris Lamons is on the team. No one knows for sure. He might not even be on the roster.
Thank you, Cincinnati.
And Marcus Kemp, too, I've had the chance to play basketball with him before, and he is just a down-to-earth, great guy. Just so humble, so kind. I'm so glad to see success for Marcus Kemp as well as Jody Fortson. I'm very glad you gave them the credit that they so rightfully deserve.
I think they epitomize what it means to be a Chief. It's easy to sit here and look at Mahomes and Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, but the culture of this franchise, down to the custodians and the ball boys, everybody is on the same page. Everybody believes. Everybody is doing everything they can to stay in that building and keep this franchise on top. And I just think these two guys really represent that.
And by the way, really quickly, Marcus Kemp is 27. So we're not talking about a rookie. We're not talking about a guy, who's on a rookie contract. While Marcus Kemp's not making a lot of money, he's stuck around because of his dedication. He's 27. You don't see a lot of special team aces, in my opinion. You look around, they're probably these rookies, younger dudes. But Marcus Kemp is still doing the dirty work even at 27. He's not too proud. And that's what makes it so special.
Speaking of culture and people in the building, number 8 is Rick Burkholder's training staff with a special hat tip to Rihanna. They somehow kept Mahomes upright and able to play well throughout the entire playoffs. Was a bit of a minor miracle. And then Rihanna. So why Rihanna? Well, halftime was half an hour. And if you recall, Mahomes gets hurt right before halftime, kind of scrambles and gets his ankle rolled up on. He's limping. If you've seen the footage, visibly, audibly in pain on the sideline. But in the second half, I don't know what they shot him up with or what kind of tape job or what they did in the locker room, but he was good to go.
It was a good call by you. They need this credit. Rick Burkholder, he is known around the league, especially here in Kansas City, for what he does to the players, getting them ready. It's not the Chargers. You're not looking around and seeing just a plethora of injuries. I think part of that has to be a hat nod to Rick Burkholder and his training staff. I like your little Rihanna shout out as well. The extra long halftime performance gave Mahomes time for that to get worked on. But have you ever dealt with a high?
She wore red too.
She wore red. She was Team Chiefs. Come on, she was Chiefs Kingdom through and
it's
through.
Obvious.
But with Mahomes and the high ankle sprain, part of that's also him, and it has to be what his training regimen is. Because if you've had a high ankle sprain, you don't just move like that, especially if you re-injure it in a game. That's what blew my mind. I didn't think he was going to run at all. When he was running on the play, I'm sitting here yelling, don't do it, don't do it. You're not going to get there either way. It's not worth it. But he's such a competitor. He was going to try anything possible in that game. But kudos to the training staff. Kudos to Mahomes and his ankle, to Rihanna, as well as Rick Burkholder.
And Julie Freimeyer, the physical therapist who basically moved into the Mahomes residence to keep him going. I just want to single her out too. Next up, this will be fun. Juju Smith-Schuster. So 7 catches for 53 yards doesn't sound impressive, but I thought during crunch time, he stepped up huge and became the possession receiver opposite Travis Kelce that the team needed. You wear a kilt to the Super Bowl, you have to show up. Those are the rules, right?
I'll agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, he wore a kilt and he killed the Eagles defense. Juju Smith-Schuster wasn't a...
Connor's proud of you for that one.
Yeah. Matt Connor, he's thrilled right now. The puns are strong. No, but Juju Smith-Schuster, the numbers don't jump out at you, but he was obviously influential. He was wide receiver 1. 7 catches were huge, made a few big plays, just moving the chains. He was a hell of a signing. You look at his contract, I think it was, 3.2 or whatever it was. It was basically the veterans minimum when he got his incentives, because he hit every single incentive. It ended up being close to $9 million this year for the total contract.
He got $1 million for the Super Bowl.
What a bargain. What a bargain. Under $10 million for Juju Smith-Schuster, including all the incentives, is just outstanding.
And what about the acting job on the sideline over there and that little, I don't know if I'd call it a trick play, but you know what I'm talking about?
Which one?
When he was acting confused. You don't remember this?
That's why he practices on TikTok.
He and Travis Kelce do this sometimes. But now we got to get to extra credit for drawing the crucial penalty on James Bradbury and sending this, in my opinion, amazing Valentine's Day card that he tweeted. I'll hold you when it matters most.
I love the route. I hate that tweet.
Why?
I hate that tweet. It's funny. I get it. And he probably didn't make it. He probably saw it, thought it was funny. It is funny, but
don't be a boomer. Come on, you win the Super Bowl.
I'm not a
you get to talk trash,
dog. Yeah, I get it, but if it was against Eli Apple, the Bengals, talk your shit. I love it. But against the Eagles and James Bradberry, who James Bradberry owned up to that like a man for 20 minutes post game, one of the biggest plays of the game, and he has to sit there knowing that falls on his shoulders, didn't pass the buck off, didn't put blame on anyone, didn't say it was the refs. He put it on himself. Don't take a shot at that dude while he's down. I get it. You have the right to talk it. You won. I'm all for it to an extent. If it was the Bengals, if they were talking, if James Bradberry came out and James Bradberry was talking about, that wasn't a hold, I didn't do it, horrible call by the ref, then yeah, talk it, Juju. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. I don't like it. The Eagles lost classy. The Chiefs have won classy. But this thing by Juju, I thought was a little tasteless.
I mean, this isn't politics or something. I don't understand. Football is entertainment. You win the Super Bowl, you get to beat your chest a little bit. When Antoine Winfield flashed the peace sign, hey,
but that's a little different.
You get to do it, man. You get to do it. You're my problem with the Bengals talking trash is they haven't won anything. They don't have any Lombardis, never in their history, and they were acting like they were a dynasty. I think when you get to the mountaintop, you get to bark a little bit. It's all fun. It's not like he said something about his wife or kids or the way he looks. It was harmless. It was harmless. I think it makes the sport more entertaining, in my opinion. And AJ Brown is the last person that should chime in. Every time that guy catches a touchdown, he's doing the too small. He's pointing at people. Come on, dude.
No, I get it. It's a minor thing. I'm not saying that I'm like clutching my pearls over here. I'm not saying this is a massive deal. I just prefer that he wouldn't have done it. Again, that's my preference. He has the right to talk his shit because you won the Super Bowl. I get it. It just comes off a little tasteless when you do it against a dude who's having the worst moment in his NFL career and he owned up to it like a man. That's all I'm saying. If it's against the Bengals and Eli Apple, I'm all for it. I'm all for that.
Let's get to something we can agree on. It definitely was a hold. And I just have such a huge issue for the way I said this the other night. Greg Olsen covers it irresponsibly. The crew, they did not show the right angle where you could clearly see the jersey tug. Let's take a look at that. It is so obvious, this jersey tug. I mean, look at that. He's got a handful of white right there. And this opinion that in the last 2 minutes, referees have to swallow their whistles. Is there like, the movie The Purge? Is that what's supposed to happen in the last 2 minutes of a game where anything goes? Because what about the other? It just makes no sense to me. The rules are the rules, no matter what time of game it is. Also, think about this. James Bradberry did the same thing to Juju earlier on third down. It kills a drive. If that happens, Juju, Andy Reid, they're in the referee's ear. So maybe they're watching for it. Maybe you should have saved that hold.
Yeah, it was D Ford then no longer offsides because it's close to the end of the game. Like, it's the same situation. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty. Again, it wasn't a magnificent penalty, right? It wasn't just something extremely blatant, but it was a hold. He may have gotten away with it too, but he did it twice. Wide receiver J.J. Burden actually was posting about it, saying it wasn't just the first time you may get away with it, but it was the second pull of the jersey. You're going to throw a flag every single time. The refs, when they talked about it post, basically came out and said there was no question in our minds. It wasn't like we had to gather around and decide was or was it not a penalty. They were like, no, this was a clear and obvious penalty. There was no second thought for them. That should say everything. Again, James Bradberry, he admitted to it. They obviously have taken it on the chin. They're not complaining about it. Nick Sirianni, Jason Kelsey, Hassan Reddick, they've all done a nice job saying it wasn't just that one call. Don't blame the refs. Maybe don't get torched the entire second half. If your defense is that good, don't just get torched. So they've handled it well. And I think for the most part, this has been a national media driven issue, if you will.
The Bengals crying about, and their fans crying about the referees for a couple weeks certainly didn't help the narrative.
Sure. And frankly, Carl Cheffers, I think, called a good game. I said in the first half, I was like, am I actually going to give Carl Cheffers credit right now?
Let's not get carried away. I mean, I don't think the officiating was necessarily great, but I don't think it was decisive for one team or another. Personally, I didn't think Dallas Goedert caught that ball. I had a real big problem with Lane Johnson not getting called for a false start, but Orlando Brown getting called for the exact same thing. So I thought there were some inconsistency problems, and that might be really what the uproar about the holding is, because they really weren't calling that kind of call. But real winners don't talk about the refs, and I do appreciate that from the Philadelphia franchise.
Yeah.
Speaking, you mentioned their defense getting torched. Isaiah Pacheco, a big part of that torching. He's a guy who always has his fire lit. The Chiefs averaged 2.55 yards before contact per rush against that stout Eagles front. I think the hard-nosed running style of Pacheco is something that the old finesse Chiefs just so desperately needed. And changing the line to a more like mauler unit, bringing in receivers who can really block, all that's fine and dandy, but you really have to have that back that can sort of punish defenses.
Yeah.
So I think he runs like someone just cut him off in traffic every time he gets the ball. Just road rage right up the middle, right?
Every time he gets up, I'm nervous he's about to throw hands with someone, because he gets up like he's looking for a fight, but no, he's trying to be a gentleman and a great sport and give the ball directly back to the referee. Isaiah Pacheco, I heard that one time he ran like he was angry at the ground. I think it's a great way of putting it. We'll obviously talk about the offensive line, I'm sure, later on in the show, but Isaiah Pacheco, just phenomenal job. Isaiah Pacheco, this is what this team needed. You're completely right. The physicality he brings is game-changing. If he learns to pass protect better, become more elusive as a pass catcher as well, sky's the limit. Again, 7th rounder going back to number 10, which was Brett Veach and his free agents and rookie class that he brought in. I like John F's Wacky World as Pacheco runs like an antelope out of control. But I mean, Isaiah Pacheco delivers the pain. He's not Derrick Henry, but he has a little bit of his running style, right? Where he's the guy trying to deliver the hit, not take the hit. CJ Gardner-Johnson got him once. Give credit where credit's due. I mean, he laid him out. I thought, oh, bleep, that's a broken collarbone. He's going to be out for the rest of the game.
A rib or something.
For something. A couple plays later, what's going on? Pacheco right back in the game, icing it away. Isaiah Pacheco, here's to you.
Yeah, and he reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember Ahmad Bradshaw.
Yeah, for the
and
Giants.
Marion Barber, those guys that run bigger than they are. That
Josh Jacobs. Not Josh Jacobs. Who is the huge dude?
Brandon Jacobs?
The 6'4" running back for the Giants.
Yeah, 260 pounds.
Yeah, Brandon Jacobs.
He's basically Derrick Henry, but not fast. So, but I've heard so many good like jokes about how he runs. One was like he's got a receipt or toilet paper stuck to his foot. To me, he just seems like the kid at a sleepover or something who had too much Mountain Dew. You know, he's just always or like Verderam pounding that Mountain Dew for everyone who was here last week.
It's Verderam when the Chiefs play bad and he comes on a halftime rant and he's doing a all-time Verderant. That's what Pacheco runs like.
But physically instead of mentally and emotionally. Let's move on to number 5, and that is wide receiver / punt returner Kadarius Toney. The Chiefs were down a touchdown until the Joker introduced some chaos, right? He came in, scored on that great play that they're calling corn dog. Andy Reid says there's nothing better than a corn dog with a little mustard and ketchup, and you got to love how those are the Chiefs colors. And then they get a stop, they punt. I think it was their backup punter, I heard. He was trying to do this tricky thing where it looks like the coverage is going to go one way and he kind of darts a punt the other way. And the problem with that, with most returners, if that would have been, I'm trying to think, what's his name back there? Watson. If that would have been Justin Watson back there, that would have been a brilliant play. But you've got Kadarius Toney, who's basically, a freaky alien back there. He does the Dante Hall kind of go backwards and reverses the field. And that wall that we talked about earlier was just set up for him. And Veach, again, this is going to kind of be the Brett Veach show today. He has to get so much credit for this because without McCole Hardman in the Super Bowl, and really, let's be honest, he didn't do much in the postseason. So without him, we really needed somebody with a similar skill set. And Toney was the guy that he brought in with the big midseason trade.
Yeah, thank you, Giants. Thank you. You're so kind.
Hey, it wasn't altruism. They did it because they were thinking ahead for EHS. They knew we were going to beat their rival in the Super Bowl.
Smart. See, Brian Dable goes, at any cost, beat the Eagles. At any cost, we'll give you Kadarius Toney. But you're right, not just the punt return, but that play call, which, by the way, that was an Andy Reid masterclass. The play call partly works because of Kadarius Toney, because of his speed, because of what he brings to the table. You put you or me back there. Justin Watson's also very quick, but you put someone else, they might not have the same respect. But Kadarius Toney is so quick and so fast, he's able to get that separation and then high step into the end zone. Kadarius Toney, you're right. He was the McCole Hardman fix, and maybe then some. I like McCole Hardman a lot. I'm not trying to take a shot at him by any means. I feel awful, horrendous that he got injured. But you look at Kadarius Toney and what he brought to the table. It's that next level speed, the shiftiness, the playmaking ability. If you look at the snap count, he was hardly on the field. But anytime he was on the field, he made a difference. An entire offseason to get healthy, hopefully get those hamstrings right, an entire offseason to get the playbook under his belt. I mean, watch out. Sky is really the limit for Kadarius Toney.
I better see that snap count increase or I'm going to have a vert rant myself. I got to see that. I just don't understand. Every time he touched the ball in the Super Bowl, something big happened. So I don't get it. Speaking of something big happening because they were on the field, let's move on to number 4. Linebackers, Nick Bolton and Willie Gay. I'm just beaming talking about these guys. And it's not just Nick Bolton with the throwback to the Andrew Luck or the Drew Lock. Let's get those guys confused. Andrew Luck and Drew Lock.
They are very different. As a Mizzou fan, I will tell you this much. I really wish Drew Lock had Andrew Luck's career.
Yeah, I bet. So it wasn't just the scoop touchdown, which, by the way, Jalen Hurts didn't just spontaneously combust and have a brain fart and drop the ball. It was because Nick Bolton sniffed that out and jumped on the play and saw what was coming, and he panicked and dropped the ball. And that was one of those no, yes moments. But I thought from the jump, Gay and Bolton, they came out hitting, and they were tone setters out there. They let those running backs and their teammates know that this was going to be an incredibly physical game. And if you think you can just run down their throats, you can't. So the league's best rushing attack averaged negative 0.26 EPA per play on running back rushes. That's atrocious. I mean, it didn't matter if it was Gainwell or Sanders. They just could not get anything going and had to rely really solely on Jalen Hurts' legs to get any traction for the running game. The other thing that stands out from our linebackers, that blitz from Willie Gay, that caused the only way they were punting is if you got them a 4th down inside their own, 30? It's really hard to stop a team that's going for it on 4th and 5 or 4th and 6 every time. So we had to pin them back to make them punt. And we did. And Spags dialed up a great blitz, but he executed.
Yeah, Willie Gay Jr. I said early on in the season against the Denver Broncos of all teams, it was actually the game after their head coach was fired. They were rolling out Russell Wilson a lot in that game, but Carlos Dunlap stood out because Carlos Dunlap was the guy who was not rushing directly at Russell Wilson, but you stay in the passing lane, you get closer, and eventually he has to throw the ball away. Well, Willie Gay Jr. must have learned from Carlos Dunlap because we saw here. I don't know if he got that from watching Dunlap or not, but it was very reminiscent to me. Jalen Hurts in space is going to beat Willie Gay Jr. one-on-one. Realistically, that's probably going to happen. So instead of Willie Gay Jr. just rushing completely, pinning his ears back and going for him, stay in the passing lane, make Jalen Hurts throw the ball out of bounds. That's what happened. They proceeded to punt. It's a little thing, but it's a very important thing. Leo Chanel obviously had a great game as well. Give a shout out to him. But Nick Bolton, my goodness, he had a legitimate case for Super Bowl MVP. Now, I understand that ball popped into his arms for a touchdown, but not just that play. The entire game, he read the RPOs correctly almost every single time. That was massive for a guy who at times overthinks, takes a second too long. He didn't overthink in this one, especially on a field that was slick as shit. I mean, that field was, they were ice skating, but Nick Bolton was not. That's really important to notice as well. There's no excuses from Nick Bolton. There was no slippage. He knew where to be, and he was there.
The kind of kid he is.
Ton of credit.
The kind of kid he is, he was probably studying the field, had tried different kinds of cleats on. He's just so smart and so diligent, just incredibly proud of him. I know he is a fan favorite, and partially because of the way he plays, but also because he went to nearby Mizzou.
Hey, he gave a shout out at the parade. Because a lot of times he doesn't say, University of Missouri or Mizzou in his pregame introduction, right, when they go on the screen. But he gave a shout out to Mizzou. He gave an MIZ before he gave the mic away. So got to give a shout out to my Mizzou guy, Nick Bolton.
Your Tiger brethren.
There we go.
Let's move on to number 3. And instead of singling any of these guys out, we're going to go the entire offensive line. So leading up to the game, all we heard was the Chiefs had no chance of stopping Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, the rest of those guys. They go, 7-8 deep with really good pass rushers. The Birds had 70 sacks. That's the most since the Minnesota Vikings in 1989. It's a long, long, long time. And of course, the interior played great. We know Tooney and Creed are going to be as good as any lineman in the league, right? And Trey Smith is solid himself. But I think what we really need to talk about here, and who we have to give credit to, is Orlando Brown, and I would say especially Andrew Wiley, played the game of their fucking lives. They really did. And they did, all these guys, they wore the 0 sacks shirt to the parade. Look at them right here. And they absolutely deserved it.
They gave up, off the top of my head right here, 3 sacks the entire postseason. 0 to the Jags. I think it was technically 3 to the Bengals. And 0 to the vaunted Philadelphia Eagles. Phenomenal.
I think that 3 had something to do with the ankle.
Sure. 100% it did. Andrew Wiley stonewalled Hassan Reddick the entire game. Orlando Brown Jr., for all the talk about what he did early in the year, progressed very nicely. And since that injury to Mahomes' ankle, the offensive line really stepped up. Those tackles were going to have their hands full the entire game, and they handled it. I know you can make the excuse that the field was poor, but in the words of Hassan Reddick, both teams played on that field. The offensive line of Kansas City dominated, not just in pass protection, but running the ball. It had a good reason why Isaiah Pacheco was finding running lanes the entire game. Chiefs ran for 6.1 yards per carry. They were dominant. They deserve to wear that 0 sack shirt. Own it. I love that when they yelled, put it on a shirt. A couple days later, guess what? It's on a shirt. I just like seeing the offensive line do what they did when the entire storyline heading into this game was how they were going to get beat. They didn't get beat.
Yeah, they were building Hassan Reddick, who I think is a nice player. He's not an 18 sack a year player. He got a lot of coverage sacks. He got a lot of cleanup sacks. Good player. He's not Reggie White. Excuse me. I thought each of these guys had some spectacular moments. I mean, there was a moment where Andrew Wiley just popped Hassan Reddick back. There was a moment where I think the first play, talk about a tone setter, Creed Humphrey pulls and just levels somebody right in their ass. Trey threw somebody down. Orlando Brown had some great runs. I don't know if you saw him flexing out there after one of them. They were feeling it, man. They were in the zone, so to speak.
We'll talk more about what the offseason brings from Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley and what this offensive line looks like. We have a lot of time till next year, but Orlando Brown Jr. got him some money from this performance, as well as Andrew Wiley. Shout out to them. I want to hit a couple comments really quickly. And Angry Drunken German. First off, shouts to you for always being here. Every single stream, every podcast, you're always very generous with your time. You say it's obvious these guys look at running the football like getting donuts at work. It's a treat. They love it. I think it's a very good point. Offensive linemen, everyone we've talked to, we've heard from, they always prefer to run block rather than pass block. There's something about the physicality of it. They enjoy it. I think it's a good point. And then Chris says Creed Humphrey is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's so good at a young age. Good point. I think if you had to pick one rookie, or at least one second-year guy or younger, to be a Hall of Famer on this Chiefs team, we know about Mahomes. We know about Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, right? I think you can make the case for Creed Humphrey. Year 2, he's already easily a top 2 center. And you can make the case for one. Him and Jason Kelce are 1 and 2, 1A, 1B. You don't just see that or just get that. When he came into the NFL, he was going to be known as a really good center, but we didn't know about the upside. We thought he was going to be not necessarily a finished product, but what was the upside? He's already surpassed what anyone thought. Creed Humphrey, come on, man. Crush those Boulevard Wheats that you were. They may have even been Boulevard Wheat 100 calories. He may have been looking at his figure.
Hey, he's looking good with the mullet and the drip. He's got to keep that going. The same thing, the book on Nick Bolton was exactly the same. Yeah. Going to be a good player, but we don't know what the ceiling is. And it's really exciting to see both these guys immediately surpass what people thought the ceiling was for them.
Yeah. Flapjack City, Eagles need to hire more Denver coaches. Good call.
Vic Fangio. Here's a tip. When you bring on a consultant to do something for you, make sure they've actually done what you're hiring them to do. You don't hire the guy who's never beat the Chiefs to beat the Chiefs. Speaking of coaches, number 2, this is a combo package here. Andy Reid, and we cannot leave out Steve Spagnuolo. I know the Eagles scored a lot of points, but I thought Jalen Hurts played the game of his life. A.J. Brown is an absolute dog. Devontae Smith is good. That line, the job they did on Chris Jones and the rest of our pass rush, which was number 2 in the league in sacks, number 4 in the league in pressures, they did an incredible job. And in the first half, it was worrisome, but he found a way to dial up the right things down the stretch. They didn't panic. They made halftime adjustments, and he got home a couple times. I thought Sirianni and his staff kind of outcoached them in the first half, but I don't think they offensively made adjustments. And Jonathan Gannon, their defensive coordinator, definitely got outcoached by Spags down the stretch.
Yeah. First with Andy Reid, the 2 touchdowns to Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney were 2 of the best play calls I have ever seen.
Weren't they a mirror of each other? Weren't they both corn dog and reverse corn dog?
And the thing was, the rumor I think I saw was that Sky Moore was actually on the wrong side of the field, but it ended up working. Mahomes made it work. But Andy Reid called a perfect game. Even the challenge, I don't think was a bad challenge. I still don't know if Dallas Goedert caught that ball. I also think the decision to kick the field goal, obviously looking back, you're sitting here going, go for it, go for it, go for it. I don't have a huge issue either way. I didn't think it was one of those situations where you have to go for it. I would have preferred him to go for it, but I don't think it was a horrendous decision. You're trying to get Harrison Butker some confidence in the same stadium, different field that he originally hurt himself. I understand the thought process there. But in the second half, Andy Reid could do no wrong. He stuck with the run. For maybe the first time in his career, Andy Reid stuck with the run. Yeah, that happened. And then Steve Spagnuolo, first half, again, probably got out coached against Sirianni. The offense for the Eagles had a great game plan. They made it work. But second half, Spags adjusted. All season long, this has happened. First half, he lets him play. And then second half, he adjusts. He adjusted. 11 points. Steve Spagnuolo is a big game coordinator. He's a big game coordinator. This is why you bring him in. He got it done.
He's the best when it counts. And his defenses always progress as the season goes along and they peak in the playoffs. And that's what you want. I think both he and Reid, they save some cards up their sleeve for when it really counts. There's a comment here that I can't keep a straight face because of, from Angry Drunken German. Is reverse corn dog something you can say on YouTube? Man, you're killing me. Gosh, lost my train of thought there. I disagree with you on Andy Reid not going forward on 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 or whatever it was. You have Patrick Mahomes. You have to trust him. And the other thing is you just have to recognize that other teams, especially this team, which is the most aggressive team in the NFL on 4th down. And if it's 4th and 2, just move the chains. Just give them the first down. That rugby scrum quarterback sneak is unstoppable. You have to match their aggression. And teams play so aggressive against the Chiefs. It just kills me. It's like the only thing about Andy Reid that's not forward thinking is his philosophy on 4th down. But I want to give him props, because they said Andy Reid couldn't establish the run. They said Andy Reid could not manage the clock. And what did Andy Reid do to win the game? He did both of those things. So I think in terms of a legacy game for him, the way he won, like reimagining this vertical Chiefs offense as kind of dork ball, like dinking and dunking and being more physical than finesse. I think Andy Reid had to take a long look in the mirror at that beautiful mustache. Maybe even, I don't know if it beats Sterling's, but it's a close contest. And he had to think, like, what we're doing is not working. We have to reinvent ourselves. And don't you think the reinvention was just what the doctor ordered, Sterling?
It really was. He learned from the Bengals game last year. That's what I take this as, is he learned. It was a redemption story all season long for guys, for Sky Moore, the punt returns, then having that Kadarius Toney from the Giants to here. This felt like a redemption story all season long, capped off with Andy Reid finally running the ball. By the way, I love the name Joe Brony already. Joe Brony.
Beautiful.
Kansas City hosting the draft is going to be awesome. It's going to be a 3-day victory lap. It's so true. We have so many more events happening in Kansas City. It's so special. The Super Bowl, the draft, the new airport, Kansas City.
Whataburger?
Kansas City. Honestly, it is impressive, though. Seriously, if you're from Kansas City, you've lived here your whole life, it's nice having these things. It's not LA. It's not New York. It's not the East Coast. Center of America, really. I mean, you are the heartbeat of America. We're right here getting all these things. You just love to see it, not getting overlooked, being forced to say, hey, we're here. We're proud. And the thing that the Chiefs in Kansas City, the city does so well very quickly, they're synonymous with each other. The Chiefs in Kansas City. You don't have that same connection at every single place. Look in LA. They don't buy into the Rams. They don't buy into the Chargers. Does Las Vegas really buy into the Raiders? But Kansas City and the Chiefs are synonymous. The city does a great job propping up the Chiefs. The Chiefs do a great job giving back. I just love seeing the sports community and the community at large join together, join forces. To me, it's a really special thing.
Yeah, it's good to see Paris of the Plains get its due, right? Speaking of getting their due, number one, Numero uno is who else? Quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Really, the MVP played a nearly perfect game. And that's evidenced by his 96 QBR ranking, which is almost perfect. And when you think about what he's doing on one and a half leg, just incredible. He also had 0.52 EPA per play. And that's one of the highest numbers we've ever seen in the Super Bowl. So a lot of people are kind of saying, oh, but Jalen Hurts outplayed him, because they're just looking at yards, right? And they're not really thinking about, well, the Chiefs were more efficient. And they also had a defensive touchdown, which kind of changed the time of possession a little bit. But he doubled up Jalen Hurts's EPA per play. And a lot of that is because he played mistake-free football. He didn't get sacked, didn't have a turnover. Hurts did. He got sacked twice. One of them, I would be remiss if I did not mention Colin Saunders, the hustle in that play. It was technically a sack. Wasn't a highlight sack. Chased him out 1 yard before the sticks. But if Big 99 isn't hauling ass like that, faster than a guy of his size should be able to move, Jalen Hurts might get a first down there. And that was one of the plays that I think changed the game. You could probably single out a dozen to 15 plays that changed the game. That is one of them. So Hurts got sacked a couple times. I think Leo Chanel technically had the other one. Mm-hmm. I'd have to go back and watch the game. I don't really remember that. Maybe was it when he got his stinger?
They're basically very, very similar, but Colin Saunders is a refrigerator that is sprinting out at you. I would be terrified if Colin Saunders was sprinting after me. I'm not taking anything away from Jalen Hurts. He had the one play, the fumble that ended in a touchdown. That was the only bad play he made the entire game. I mean, Jalen Hurts was throwing dimes left and right. Whatever you think about Dallas Goedert and the catches, the ball was perfect. But Patrick Mahomes was perfect this game. He took care of the football, did what he was supposed to do. He controlled the offense. He helped lead a 5.5 minute drive, 5 minute, 15 second to ice the game and end it. He did everything he possibly could in this one. Shout out to Jerick McKinnon for going down, by the way. He could have told all his kids, I scored a touchdown in a Super Bowl. But instead, he went down on the 2-yard line, knowing the situation, being the veteran that he is. That was massive. But Mahomes just controlled the game. That's what made it so impressive. Knew the situation and also fighting through the injury, re-injuring his ankle. We saw the pain. We saw the emotion, but no doubt in his mind or any of ours, he was going back out there and getting it done. Down 10 points. Didn't panic. Kept his cool, calm, and collectedness about him and got it done. Patrick Mahomes, crush those Coors Lights and hopefully some Casey beer.
Yeah, Mitch said this at the parade, but he's the first person this century to win both MVP and Super Bowl MVP in the same year. We can't sing his praises enough. He's the best, and at his age, to not only be carrying a team, because this is not what Brady and Ben Roethlisberger and other young quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls. They were good, but they were getting held up by great defenses and not being asked to do nearly what this guy's being asked to do, but also just the pocket presence on that run. By the way, you said something earlier about Pacheco needing to become a better pass blocker. He threw his body out there on that scramble. I was proud of number 10 for that. But on that scramble, he's got this little peek he does, which I think it's like a John Elway end of his career kind of peak that he already has mastered. I'm just so impressed with not the crazy 50-yard bombs that Mahomes is doing, that he has just become this maestro who now controls every aspect of the game down to the slightest detail. He just got such a feel for everything that's happening. Isn't that the biggest, his metamorphosis this season into that? Isn't that what's impressed you maybe more than anything he's ever done?
Yeah, and that's why I think he's just now starting to enter his prime, which is so scary for the rest of the NFL. The physical traits are still going to be there, but it's the mental aspect. It's now seeing everything, knowing when to take the shot, knowing when to check down. And that honestly is very impressive and difficult to do. When you have that talent, when your entire life you've always been the best player, and you know you can make these throws, these difficult throws, the deep play, the plays that are game-changing. But sometimes the situation calls for you to check it down, to not make the big play, to control the clock. Mahomes learning this is the next step in his evolution. This is why I say Mahomes is just now entering his prime, and I can't wait. 2 championships already under the belt. I know we may be getting a little greedy here, but I just feel like there's still so much room that this team can grow, and we're all along for the ride. It's so fun.
And if he's Jordan, Travis Kelce is Pippen, and we have to be greedy for as long as Pippen is here. We had so many good performances. Travis Kelce didn't even make this list. So before we go, let's just touch on number 87. And he was helpful establishing the tone right from the get-go. He looked great. I think he got the Chiefs off to a hot start.
Yeah. No, honestly, it was the Kelce game. It really was to start it, because Jason Kelce bulldozed the offensive line through the Chiefs defense for a touchdown on the ground. And then you see Travis Kelce the entire first drive saying, I'm taking over. And then he capped it off with a touchdown of his own. You're thinking this is going back and forth with a run game from the Eagles and Travis Kelce. And then it turned out everyone else decided to make plays, not the run game for the Eagles and not as much Travis Kelce for the Chiefs, but still got to give a huge shout out to Travis Kelce.
Yeah, Jason Kelce is a bit of a conundrum, because here's this nicest guy in the world who just lost a Super Bowl and then goes on a podcast with his brother and talks about after he lost, he's having tears of joy for his brother who won, and his mother and father, just an exceptional human being. But on the field, I saw him try to murder Trent McDuffie. He really did. He like damn near took little 21's head off.
Yeah.
And just a really intense, smart, Hall of Fame competitor himself. It was very cool to see them in the Super Bowl together. It's a bummer that one of them had to lose. I'm glad Jason Kelce already got his ring, because I think that's going to be essential to him getting into the Hall of Fame. And I think making it this week, you're a sinner. You don't really get the limelight. Being Travis Kelce's brother, not that he's not on par or near on par with Travis Kelce, but I think Travis Kelce being a skill position player is just naturally going to attract more media attention. It was good to see Jason kind of get his due.
Yeah, no, it truthfully is nice to see him get his due, making the offensive lineman position sexy, right? You're starting to get bigger names, recognize more offensive linemen. Honestly, it makes it better for Creed Humphrey too. If you start recognizing Jason Kelce, maybe the average fan, the casual fan will start saying, well, what positions play center? Well, let me look at other centers around the NFL. Creed Humphrey, up there as the best in the NFL, maybe he starts getting more love in his own right.
Anybody else you want to single out?
The fans. Give the shout out to the fans and a shout out to everyone who's been along with us all season long, whether you joined last week, you've been with us in the past, 2 years almost. I just got to give a shout out to you guys. I know this is corny. This is me sucking up, but it's true. We couldn't do this without you guys. If we didn't do this and no one listened, why do it? We do appreciate everything you guys do, from the Discord to the comments, even if it's a mean comment here and there, comments from other fan bases. Heck, Vlad the Impaler, I know you're a 49ers fan. You've been here all season long. We've had Action Jackson, the Bills fan. We've had Bengals fans, but you Chiefs fans have been so great. And truthfully, it means the world to us. Again, we're not this massive conglomerate. This is the Arrowhead Addict podcast. We do it because we love Chiefs Kingdom. We try and bring a non-homer approach a lot of the time, but sometimes our true heart bleeds through. Thank you, guys. It truthfully does mean a ton to us.
I can't help that I bleed red and piss yellow. Oh wait, everybody does. But
I'm glad it wasn't the opposite.
Oh, yeah. So is my doctor. Yeah, for me, this is very special. And I want to thank you guys, because when I started this with my brother back in 2007, the Chiefs, they weren't very good. And we couldn't have dreamed of having this kind of channel, this kind of fan base, and 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. And to be back for my first year back in over a decade for this Super Bowl season was just magical for me. So I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. That's all we have for Wacky Wednesday this week. Kind of fun episode. We will be back, and Patrick and Matt will be here Thursday to discuss the game in more detail. because I've got a cold, I'm not going to be on TikTok tonight. I think I'm going to do that tomorrow night, probably a longer session. I will let you guys know on Twitter. I'll go live on TikTok. It's fun. I'll just answer your questions about the big game. I don't think any of us are sick of talking about it yet, right? I probably won't be sick of talking about it for another month or two. But anyway, that's all we've got for you. Go Chiefs.